Hello and welcome to yet another Ball of Passion match review. I am here with Chris and George, and we are here to break down this Crystal Palace game. And honestly, it's kind of interesting to talk about because a lot of flashpoints, a nasty deep block at the end, which I think we all loved, but some nail-biting moments as well. So let's just get into it. How both of you first of all, and what were your initial thoughts and just summary of the game?
It was a tough one because I changed my prediction because I thought that Gabrielle would be back, and I was frustrated because in the end it's kind of what we ended up seeing in the game. Mixed feelings. I'm sure that we'll get into the nitty gritty of the tactics and everything of it all, but before the game I kind of predicted what the troubles would be, and we saw them in full fledged. So
Mm.
it was really frustrating from a balance perspective. I enjoyed the fight and the grit that we did. I enjoyed that at this kind of temperature of game, I was never worried about conceding. And I think that that's a benefit kind of looking towards the future on one hand, but at the same token, mate, like you've got to be frustrated that Mikel is not putting out the team that we know we can. I feel as though that we're operating at 60% potential here, and it's because of balancing issues. It's because of the issues that the coach is not allowing for there to be symmetry on the same side. Like we can't be having three runners. We've seen it far too often, and so um, I'm just frustrated because there was a lot of good things, but it was almost as though that I've seen a team that was capped at the knee potential wise.
Yeah,
Chris?
I think it was great to grind out a result like that, especially away from home. I think the way the game went, we were probably lucky that they didn't have a 1v1 threat like Elise on the wing. Um, because in that last 20, 30 minutes of the Tomiyasu red, the game was dying out for someone to go 1v1 versus one of our fullbacks or one of our many defenders that was on the pitch at the time. Like Saka was left back, and then we brought on Zinchenko and Kyrgios, and they eventually brought on a winger in the 83rd minute. But then I think at that point it wasn't early enough for them to influence the game. But yeah, overall I think it was a decent game. I think again we left goals out there on the pitch. We should have scored. Eddie, we will get into the chances, but Eddie probably should have scored. Um, yeah, Saka came off a pen, another big talking point. Obviously, the ref is a big one in this one because I thought he had a big impact on the way the game went. Even without the red card, I think he had a big impact on the game. And then, yeah, we're one of three teams to have 6 points. So at least we won, actually. At least we won despite the red and complaining about the refs and complaining about the lineups. At least we still got the 3 points on the board. So overall, it's good. The Palace experience, I'd say, because I think a lot of teams will struggle.
At
Yeah.
Selhurst Park, especially, like I can't remember the record that I remember hearing from commentary, but I feel like Roy
That's their
Hodgson. When's the
first
last time
loss.
that he's lost?
It's his first loss since March at
Exactly.
home.
I think it was 9 games. I think
Yeah,
from what I remember. So look, it is significant. Don't get me wrong. It's just I feel like we made things a lot more difficult for ourselves, and I think we'll get into this unpredictability aspect in terms of some things. Like I mean, Tomiyasu and build up. We're going to have to talk about those passing angles in terms of how it frustrated. But one thing that we'll probably talk about in detail about man of the match is Declan Rice and how, for me, his best performance in an Arsenal shirt. There haven't been many, but still, he really took a step forward. I think in this game, in terms of being the first person in build up. I think that was significant. It was the first time Thomas Partey was there, and he. I think he thrived with the responsibility. So there's a lot of positives to take with Declan Rice. I feel in the midfield, and I think that Thomas Partey had a game that people will maybe question on rewatching because I think that most people felt that he was really poor defensively, which I definitely saw. There was times that he got stood up and he wasn't comfortable kind of in the right back spot. But I think that there was a couple really good instances where he was understanding when to come into midfield, when not to. There was definitely some cohesion issues that we found at the back. And yeah, I agree. Saliba was incredible in the match. And Eddie Nketiah alone, if he finishes the chances, which again, you can chastise him for, he should do better in those chances and he should convert. But the running in the channels was elite. It was excellent. I think Eddie Nketiah all game having a very, very strong game off the ball.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think the main thing was, I think, well, twofold actually. One was obviously, as George mentioned, and I think Chris has both mentioned, is that we've got Selhurst Park out of the way early, and we've got a win there. City themselves last season got a 1-0 dodgy victory like we did, off a penalty as well. And second is obviously the man management in terms of getting lots of people on the pitch, trying to get people involved. I think it's been 2 games we've used 16 players. We haven't done that before. So for me, I think just being able to have that squad and being able to use it a bit more. I'm still disappointed in some of the players left out, some of the players included, but it is what it is, especially with the squad we have. You're not going to see everyone every game. But yeah, I think the main thing for me is getting the 3 points, getting out of there. And honestly, it's those kind of really knuckle down, where you're just holding on. Those wins, they're excruciatingly painful when you're in the middle of also the last 10 minutes of them. But when you start looking back at it, you think, oh, that's a great win. That's a really great win. And then I don't remember who said it, but I remember someone saying, I remember it was a player saying that those wins, it feels like everyone's involved, everyone from defensive unit, the attacking unit, the goalkeeper, everyone feels those wins a bit more because everyone feels more involved with the contributing to that performance. If someone
I
remembers
think Gary Neville.
who's
Gary
was
Neville.
it Gary Neville? Yeah, it was Gary Neville. And he's right. And it's not very often that he is, but he is right on this occasion. So yeah, very satisfied with him. But let's get into it because there are 3 main talking points I want to get into today, and we'll start with the first one, which is the left side. I think we mentioned it briefly. Tomiyasu, Havertz, Martinelli, that kind of cohesive unit. Where does Gabriel fit into it? Why is he not playing, etc.? I think that's a massive talking point. And for me, before I let George and Chris go, I think for me, George mentioned before the passing, the receiving angles and the passing angle for Tomiyasu. That's one part of it. The main thing for me is his apprehension in going forward at times, and he's not comfortable doing the overlap. And if you're going to have both Martinelli and Havertz in the same half space, you need someone to, make that run on the outside to really push them inside a bit more. And that way you can have Havertz be in that sort of more central role behind the striker rather than both of them are looking for someone on the outside and not really seeing it because Havertz is trying to make that overlap, but he's not making it consistently enough. Martinelli's just touchline and you're not getting the best out of him. You need that lane to be filled by someone by your left back, and it just wasn't. And that for me was the main issue. I still think, and I will harp on about this for a long time. I still think Kai Havertz needs to be central if he's going to be playing in this box dime, whatever you want to call it. He needs to be central in the role that we saw him maybe in preseason and the Community Shield, where he was more central. Even though he was a 9 in the Community Shield, but he's more central and able to have that freedom to find space and explore space and find the runs. There was I think George tweeted earlier about how he found Martinelli free, and that's what he's meant to be doing. That's how he operates, and that's the main thing that he does very well, is that he explores space and finds the runs around him very well. So I personally think he needs to be central, and if that means Odegaard left, that means Odegaard left. If it means Odegaard be a bit deeper, means him a bit deeper. But for me, I just need to see 2 things: one, Kai Havertz more central, and the second, that lane being filled by a body, whether it be Tierney, Tomiyasu, Zinchenko, whoever it is. But yeah, that was the main thing. I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on the left hand side.
I mean, there's a lot to talk about there. But I had thrown out a tweet kind of pre-match where I essentially said, I'm kind of worried. I'm skeptical of the left-hand side fluidity. And I felt that there was a connector that needed to happen, somebody with a little bit more technical empathy in Trossard, because when you look at the three pod space on the left-hand side of, let's just say, Eddie Nketiah, Martinelli, and Kai Havertz, you've got three runners there that like to run into the same channels as each other. And so when you combine those three, you're pushing your wingers wide in effect, because right now Martinelli's probably the one that's the only one that's comfortable between the two on the touch line. And therefore, when you're doing those things, you don't have somebody that's going to push him inside closer to goal. And what we saw constantly was Martinelli check on the back foot, recycle the ball, pass it backwards. That was an inevitable kind of pattern of play that we saw all throughout the 90. And a big part had to do with A, being found between the lines. So our two eights, when you look at it, of course, Tomiyasu, we briefly touched on it. I was worried about the passing angles, and I said passing angles, not receiving angles. Why? Because Tomiyasu can receive both sides. That's not an issue. He's fully capable of receiving anywhere on the pitch. The issue is the clipped ball with his weak foot over the top to get a first time entry pass. He takes too long and he checks back onto his strong foot with his right foot, which again, it's not something that I'm really upset at Tomiyasu about. He's a right-footed defender naturally, and he opens up that way. He wants to drive to the right. That's fine, but I'm upset at the coach. And if you're going to be putting that at left center back, especially when you're replacing either a Kiwior or you're replacing a Gabriel, who can find that first time ball to Martinelli, you're going to be finding him in spaces that he prefers quicker. So that's the first issue. When you slow around the build up in the back there, then it means that our wingers aren't getting the pass they need. Firstly, then next that we're going to be talking about is that pod space in general, because Kai Havertz was responsible. How, Curran, you're saying that you prefer him central, and I've been beating to death this tip of the diamond that we need to start seeing. It was made worse by Palace, who in essence played more of a 4-4-2. I don't know if you guys picked up, but like really centrally, they're going to crowd central spaces. We know this. Every team that faces Arsenal is going to crowd central spaces, but they did it a lot different than Forest did. They did it more towards a 4-4-2, and they kind of had Edouard and Eze drop as part of the front two. And they had kind of, who was it? Lurma and Decoure kind of on the inside, and they asked their wingers, and Schlupp and Ayew to really be quite narrow. And so what we ended up having, is if you were kind of trying to describe the shape, right, is you had kind of Martin Odegaard as well as Kai Havertz operating on the outer edges of Lerma and Decoure. And what they used were Schlupp and Andre Ayew to kind of stop that ball into them. So it was on Thomas Partey and Declan Rice to basically find space out wide. That was the big issue. When you pack the middle like that and you sacrifice wide spaces, you're asking your central midfielders to drop into those wide spaces. That's another thing that kind of we struggled with, because when we did drop our central midfielders kind of out wide, what it did do was it left a really big gap in the middle of the park. And, it kind of asked either Declan Rice or Thomas Partey to exploit that and run in, because while Havertz dropped, we didn't have an overlap, let's say, like a Kieran Tierney. We didn't have a Kiwior. We didn't have a presence overlapping wide to allow Martinelli to push inside when Kai Havertz would drop. That same dynamic was a little bit easier on the right because Ben White's a more willing runner. But I think a frustrating thing from a fan perspective is if you're going to ask Thomas Partey to invert from right back, you need your left back to do the Ben White role. That needs to happen for balance. And that goes beyond just having a simple runner, because I do believe a Trossard has a much better ability and build up to carry out of those tight spaces, who can operate on the touchline a little bit more and will overlap for Martinelli. So you've got somebody more natural on that side that is willing to fill the spaces and allow the runners to run into those spaces. And I don't think that if we're going to persist with Eddie in that sense, that we can afford to have all three on that side. There needs to be a consequence. If you don't have Eddie and you include a Trossard or a Gabriel Jesus, then sure, you can maybe ask for a more running type of central midfielder. But then, even then, I would argue and I would point towards the Barcelona game. Even when we had that type of striker up there, Kai Havertz and Martinelli still had some trouble with chemistry. And it's because of that running, that underlap running kind of conflict. I don't see that chemistry being able to improve because they're both big space runners. So that for me was the big issue on the left.
I do think they didn't really combine much, but I also do think Tomiyasu, even though he didn't want to do it, that want to overlap, he did. He was high a lot of the time. I think Declan Rice indirectly, maybe on purpose, actually forced him to move up the pitch by dropping into left centre back, allowing Partey to be the six, and then they'd step up in like sometimes a 2-2, so like White and Saliba and Rice and Partey, and that happened a lot early, like maybe the first 15, 20 minutes. Rice just kept dropping left centre back and moving Tomiyasu up the pitch just to offer another option, and that's what did lead to probably the one time all game that Martinelli and Havertz combined, because that is that is the video you quote tweeted. That is the moment, probably the clearest space we got for anybody in the whole game. Like Martinelli should have got a shot on goal, at least at the minimum, from that position. He was in that exact same position last year, weirdly, where Jesus passed him and he put it wide. This time he got his shot blocked, but I think the Havertz and Martinelli combination, the team, even the whole team, suffers. Like the front line suffers a lot from us being a bit more, I think, defensive, despite having like more attackers on the pitch, in quotation marks. We have like centre backs on the pitch as well. So at the same time, I think defensively we're a lot more resolute. The transitions weren't as impactful. Like if you have players like Eze, they're always gonna have a chance in transition. Like their one shot on target in the first half was his shot from outside the box. So at times they did create, but our left hand side I think suffered a lot and probably will continue to have the same issues for a long time. We don't have any relationships in the front line at all. Martinelli and Nketiah don't combine. They've played together a lot over the years, but they don't combine. Like even though Eddie drops that side, he doesn't. They don't play 1-2. They don't run off each other like Jesus
There's
and
a certain
Martinelli.
English midfielder that we've got on the books that I think has what you're describing. And
And on the right hand side, he took that away as well. He took that away with Ben White. He took that away with the midfielder you're talking about, Emil Smith Rowe. So like, Arteta has taken away all our combinations in the front line that were like White and Saka. Whenever they combined last season, consistently was pretty unstoppable. I'm not sure why he took it away, but he did. And
do you know what my frustration is, mate? Like again, I hate to keep banging this bus because I've been saying this for so long. But by switching, for example, Martin Odegaard into the positions that Tomiyasu takes up, are people telling me that in time and space that he's not able to pick out a pass? I don't understand this logic. I mean, when Declan Rice would drop into the wide of the three and push Tomiyasu up, look, you can have Zinchenko there. You can ask whoever you want there, Trossard. A passer needs to be down that side. And when you've got time and space and you've got a runner like, what you've got in Martinelli who can find space on the inside, okay? The one issue I've got is even when Kai Havertz would cheat to the left, he isn't somebody that's going to overlap in the same way that Granit Xhaka did last year. The big reason that you see the interchange and people are saying we need to wait for Jesus. Guys, the only reason that you're seeing it easier with Jesus is because Jesus will overlap wide. He will do that. It doesn't have to be Jesus. It has to be somebody that is willing to go on the outside. Simple. Period. End of story.
It's not even just to go on the outside, because I think Havertz will go there, but he won't stay there. Like he won't hold the width. Like he won't hold the position. No. Like versus Chelsea last season at the end of the season, Xhaka got 2 assists just from standing on the left wing, receiving the ball and whipping it to the edge of the box for Odegaard. Pretty much the same assist twice. And you probably never see Havertz in that position, just standing there on the left foot, crossing the ball in. And if you have him and Martinelli and Nketiah, these guys, Havertz is the only one physically able to play that pass consistently because he's a left-footed player. So if you're going to play all right-footed players on the left-hand side, you have to have your lefty want to be there. And he doesn't want to be there. He doesn't ever go there. Like even yesterday, he wasn't there because he was there to run off the ball. And I think off the ball, he was great. He won the most goals on the pitch. But on the ball, the way we rotated, he wasn't effective enough, I think. Even though he had no, I'm not going to say he had a good game, because I don't think he had a good game, like Havertz. I don't think he was involved enough for me to say, oh, Havertz had a good game. And I don't think he should have been on the pitch as long as he was. I think we made the wrong sub as well, because that period before the Zinchenko sub, we couldn't get the ball. Like we had, I think it was 82 to 18 for that 10 minutes where Eddie came off and Havertz was our striker. We couldn't get out. Like he wasn't strong enough when the ball was lumped up there to win the ball for us. And I think that's another thing which surprised me. Like Mikel went for Havertz over Eddie in that position. What did you guys make of that? Like why, when we did get the red, why do you think he made Havertz the 9 and not Eddie? Like to try and push us up the pitch alone, because Havertz can't drag us up the pitch alone like Eddie.
I don't think it was a physical battle. I think it was a technical decision. Again, I don't agree with it because I think the game was calling for a physical backboard. But I think the decision from a coaching angle was by moving kind of Havertz in that role, he was more so looked at retaining the ball because we didn't have it. you read the stats there, 80% possession. So I think the one thing that he thought, again, I don't agree with it, but he thought that technical security needed to be the play as opposed to a physical outlet, which again I disagree with because you look at the state of the game, you look at who was in the middle of the park, right? It needed a battler, and it needed somebody to lump it into space in the channels to run onto. Havertz wouldn't be able to do that, right? So that for me was an issue with some of what Mikel's ideas were going. But yeah, Curran, you were going to say something.
Yeah, no, I think that I agree. I don't agree with the decision because I was hoping that when the subs were being made, I was hoping to see, West Ham away 2021, Eddie. Just lump it into channels, let him chase after the ball, just go long if need be, and just waste time up the pitch. But I think what Mikel decided to do was, I'm going to mix in some technicians with the physical side of things, and retain the ball up the pitch as well, not just being able to just have that physical lump, as it were, to go up the pitch. We saw with his substitutions, all of his substitutions had 100% pass accuracy, and that was, for me, I think his plan. His plan was, look, we're gonna see this game out, but we're also, when we get the ball, we're not gonna just lose it. You can see when Jorginho was coming on, he's going 1-2, 1-2, wake up. We need to get out. Literally, if you go back and watch, he's gesturing with his hands, going 1-2, 1-2. Come on, let's go. And this is what his plan was. His plan was, look, we're going to get the ball back. We're not going to sit there and just do nothing. We're going to get the ball back and we're going to keep it and we're going to move up the pitch. And we saw a couple of nice sequences, let's say, especially I think towards the 88th, 90th minute, like just to kind of really put the game on ice, sort of. There was one ball, I think, in the 92nd minute where Jorginho just fizzed it into Rice, and Rice just had to kind of juggle. Just a really nice touch from him, and then we kind of recycled it around, and Saka, and then not Saka, I think someone on the right got the ball, and we had some very nice touches. But the main thing is we weren't going to try this whole just defend and launch. We were trying to defend and retain. I think that's the best way to put it, and it worked. So you can't really put too much wrong. I don't agree with the methodology there, but I can see what the plan was, and that was the main thing. It kind of dovetails quite nicely into the second thing I wrote down to talk about this game, and that would be the player management and the in-game management this game, because we've seen a lot more rotation. Obviously, Gabriel again on the bench. We've seen a lot of people being brought in. Seeing Nelson being brought back into the fold as well, a bit on the subs bench, which hasn't been for a while now. So obviously Tierney left out as well. So lots of rotation. I know I'm the same, Chris. But the main thing is that we're really looking to use the squad a lot more, and I think there's a lot more proactive in-game management this season than there was last season. I think Mikel's took it upon himself to rectify the mistakes of last season, and I wanted to have that discussion while we're here.
Well, this game, I think the Red forced him into
Yeah.
subs, so we don't know what the plan was, like what he would have done to probably get back on the ball a bit more, to score another goal to get you guys' 2-0 prediction correct. Like, what would he have done to secure the game a bit more? I think as soon as Tomiyasu got red in like the 66th minute, I think, something like that, Gabriel came on straight away for Martinelli, who did complain. I thought he'd pick Havertz to bring on, but he didn't. I thought he would have trusted Martinelli to do the running and the doors in the midfield more, like just to give us the chance to go up the pitch more with a Martinelli run, something like that. But he took that away, so he picked Gabriel to come on first, and then Jorginho alone. Then at some point we had every centre back that we wanted, apart from Tomiyasu, who doesn't. If you're the centre back on the pitch, and I think it was necessary because they were just lumping the ball into the box. Really, they were just crossing the ball into the box. So we needed to be more physical with Kiwior coming on the pitch, and then Zinchenko coming on, just secured the ball a bit more. We had our only passage of play in that last 15-20 with him on the pitch. We kept the ball for, I think, from 90 to 92 was the only good period on the ball. But at that point, it's just don't concede. So I think that's really what it was with his changes. I don't think there was anything bad or good with what he did, because he was forced into the Gabriel sub. I wouldn't have taken off Martinelli, but he did so, and it was still successful. So yeah, I don't think he could have done much.
Well, and I do think that he was sacrificed by a brilliant Declan Rice display. I have to go back to it because when you look at it, I think Declan Rice was doing an amazing job of finding space in between the pockets all match, and he even did it in a progression sense. Like there were times that he would drag Eze or Edward kind of to one side. He would then play a wall pass, so that Saliba or Ben White would just slip him in centrally, and he'd run blind side around Eze, around Edward, and he'd receive it in the middle of the pitch. And his ability to switch balls, I noticed that was one thing we did a lot better this game of switching to the underloaded side. And I think that's what allowed us to have a little bit more attacking play. When you found Declan Rice kind of in pockets, how many times did he put an excellent weight of pass through to either Martinelli, but even Eddie Nketiah on the chances? Like, he was brilliant on the night. And I think that he made up for a lot of issues centrally, where our eights, again, struggled to receive. They struggled to be brave enough between the lines, and Declan stepped into that role. I think he did it brilliantly. Of course, he's got the security of Thomas Partey behind him, so I feel like he's got the freedom to showcase that side of the game. But um, his willingness to kind of ghost in behind his marker, whether it was Eze, Edouard, was brilliant. And he found space between the lines, and he was very good about slipping in both Bukayo Saka and Martinelli on either side of the pitch. And I think that was really important in allowing us to find space. I do think that Eddie's willingness as a runner was very important to kind of disrupt the block that they were doing centrally. So a lot of times I don't think that, Martinelli or Saka had space centrally, and they were looking for clip balls over the top to exploit space behind, because there was nobody between the lines that was offering enough of a presence. And again, I'm going to end on this last point of, I think it pisses me off even more that Kieran Tierney's not selected for this kind of game when you're looking at that, because he's got that floated ball over the top for the winger to kind of press onto. And there were times that Ben White was finding joy finding Saka that way. But just fundamentally, Tomiyasu was not able to find the same ball. And that, for me, is kind of the mistake when you've got two fullbacks, in Ward and in Tyreek Mitchell, that are 1v1 opportunities. I mean, Tyreek Mitchell, the space he leaves behind overlapping is always on for Bukayo Saka. And so for us, the way that they stopped that was trying to stop the first entry pass into that. But I think largely on the left, the one thing that I wasn't happy with was I didn't see too many 1v1 Ward opportunities with Martinelli. And there has to be something said. I don't know if it was because he wasn't fit, but Martinelli kept checking back and recycling the ball. Let's have it right. That first chance he has in the first couple of minutes, he has to bury that. He does that last season. He shifts it on his left foot, boom, bang, bottom corner. It's done. But I think all game he was checking back, he was recycling onto his strong foot. And look, some of it could be because he was isolated. He didn't find the support that he needed. But at another sense, when he's in those situations, he has to be a little bit more decisive. And so I was kind of annoyed that he was checking inside without an overlap. And so those are some tweaks that we maybe have to think about. And I don't know. There's one thing that I've got in my notes that I'll probably throw it back to you guys, and it's William Saliba. Like, I thought that he played a different level of orchestrating in this last game. I think between him and Rice, how do you guys see that partnership moving down the line? Because there was a lot more fluidity about having somebody step up, and I think Declan solves a lot of the issues at the left center back. But I think both Saliba and Rice offer a level of transition control and, more importantly, build up that gives the team a lot more freedom to progress through the middle or wide. But what did you guys think of William Saliba's performance in general?
I mean, the main thing for me was I think that Declan was much more secure and confident. I think this was his game where he was kind of given the reins, as it were. I think he was really controlling the midfield, telling people where to go, pushing people into different positions, really making sure that everyone was on their game, sort of, especially in that last 20 minutes. So for me, look, we all of us on the channel from day one, we've said that Declan is it's obvious what we think about him, but just to see him put on one of those performances under the lights in a Premier League game at Selhurst Park, it's what we wanted. This is that performance was what I wanted for I would say 2 years. I think all of us would say the same thing. And in terms of the partnership with Saliba and the transition control elements, look, you're not going to bully this team anymore. There's too many physical dual monsters throughout the pitch, or in all thirds of the pitch. You're the balance between technicians and physical monsters is there, and I just think that, especially if you're going to play, if we're having Zinchenko back, for example, having Rice there with Saliba gives him that sort of that release valve. If pressure is mounting on the transition, you have Rice who can close down people at a ridiculous rate. Saliba too. So yeah, it was literally what I was going to bring up next, Declan Rice. But in terms of Saliba himself, I know people are posting that tackle everywhere, but let's be clear, he gets himself into that position. Like he got himself he got caught for a second and then realized, oh crap, I have to be insane. So I have to do this, I have to make this tackle now. But yeah, no, it was a great tackle, and it's a great having him there, especially in that central centre back role where we're lacking at the minute, because I don't think Gabriel is, and I haven't really seen Tomiyasu in that central centre back role yet. So it'll be interesting to see what we do with him, because he's still so important now. But going forward, I just think that in terms of their relationship, I think it's only going to get better, and it's only something that we can rely on even more.
I think for me, on and off the ball, I think that they just allow us to be a lot more flexible. They allow us to just not be so rigid, even though I don't think we've got great rotations. Like, just them two alone just allowed us to push numbers up into the box consistently, force Tomiyasu up, as I said before. And there was even times where they were a back two with White a bit ahead of them, just them two standing in the halfway line, and most of the team just pushed completely up the pitch. And I just think they're both elite indoors. I think they both got great pass selection. So I think our build-up is at its best when it's just them two, when it's them two like dictating the ball, because they will have a lot of touches. And we did say on the roundup that like your centre back and your central centre back and your DM do have the most touches and passes of the team. Like Saliba, first game had 124 passes or something like that. So he's going to have a high volume of passes. Now Rice had the most. So with Rice stepping into this role, is his first time doing this for us. He did say it was a new role, but something he knew he'd be asked of. I think in transition, especially the transition control, it's pretty dominant. Earlier I said we sacrificed the offensive fluidity for better defensive ability. I think in transition we really was solid like for 90 minutes. Apart from I think it was a Decore long shot and IU, not IU, so Eze long shot. We didn't really suffer much from their transitions or their counters. They did lack like they didn't have a player that could cut in, and I think that's one thing that Palace's offense didn't make much sense to me. Like
And
all
an
their
outlet, mate. Like for me, they didn't have a physical out. Like Edouard's meant to be the physical outlet, but he doesn't bring people into
but
play.
also even if you do lump it up to him, there's no wingers that running diagonally inside to receive. No one like Shub and you don't want to receive like running towards on their right foot, like or their left foot. They want to open up to the outside because neither of them really are comfortable on their weak foot. So like if they had an Elise there, the defense is a lot more dangerous. Like you did say earlier, they were very narrow, and it was something that surprised me because Ayu was never touchline, and that's why probably he looked better.
Well, there was that, and I think Hodgson kind of knew that. That's why he put on Ray Seki, to try to offer a little bit more
He did it so
penetration.
late. He did it in the 83rd minute.
I
Like
know.
at that point, we were so settled. For me, that change has to come on 70th minute. As soon as
Well,
Gabriel walks on the pitch.
starting. It could have started, but that's never
Yeah,
going to
but I'm
happen.
saying as soon as Gabriel walks onto the pitch, he has to walk on with Gabriel.
Yeah, yeah. I think the issue though, and I wanted to bring this up, I don't know if you guys saw this, but I felt that the mental lapse and concentration from Palace in general is what we exploited quite a bit. Go back to that the big Eddie Nketiah chance that he lifts over the keeper, right? If you go back towards it, it's Eze's responsibility to track Declan Rice's run. Like Martin Odegaard drops into the wide space, like we were talking about earlier into the show, as a central midfielder. He finds space on the side, right? Palace have forced us wide there. He picks up possession high and wide. Declan Rice makes a blind spotted run in behind Eze into the pocket.
How many times did you? Sorry to cut you off, but how many times did Rice do that as they just pass the ball, stand still for 2 seconds, and just run behind him?
That's why I bring it up because I even said it earlier in the show in terms of build up. He did the exact same thing playing a wall pass. He did the same thing to Edouard, and I just feel like the entire portion of Palace's downfall was a mental lapse in trying to make those concentrations. Even go back to the goal, guys. Martinelli, like it's quick thinking off set pieces, but it was clearly something that the coaches did as an instruction. That Palace are lazy, or well, lazy is the wrong word, but they have mental lapses in the middle of the park tracking runners. And so Martinelli plays a quick ball into the set piece, and that's what gets Eddie Nketiah the chance. And I think that even our set pieces, if you notice, they were done quite quick. So that for me was definitely a thing that the coaches highlighted.
They are a very, very physical team. So if you leave everything right in front of them, they can meet it with the force. But when you play things in and behind them, in and around them, like Ward isn't good at tracking runners. Wan-Bissaka wasn't good at tracking runners. Like they haven't really changed. They've got the same manager Wan-Bissaka has. So Wan-Bissaka had, sorry. So a lot of their players don't track runners well as a defends really like a striker. That just lets people walk in and around him. But again, I don't really blame him because there's not many DMs that you would see make that run to the edge of the box like Declan Rice did and play that great pass to Eddie Nketiah. So I think again, Eze has to do better there, but at the same time, you have to know your opponent. You know he doesn't expect a lone pivot, as Declan Rice called himself, to make the run in behind him consistently. But
Lerma has to be there, but he gets sucked into Martin Odegaard. Like, let's have it right? You know, that's why the midfields drop into that zone because they're trying to create space for the runners to pop into. I also feel like we haven't really talked too much about it, but what did you guys make of Thomas Partey's role in terms of finding space out wide and making those runs up the back? Because he made the runs. There was even a couple of good instances where he finds himself free in the widest channel and he finds, Martinelli out for a cross-field ball. It worked. I was annoyed that he had that role, but what did you guys make of kind of the inverted Partey role, which is basically the second time we've seen it since Wolves?
I understand what you've just said, but the one thing that stood out for me with Partey's inverted right back role, and it's not something you'd really see as specifically an inverted right back responsibility, but the ability to trap it pressing. I think the ability to go, we were 3-on-1 versus a lot of the time, especially in that first half. We isolated their wingers and really made sure that they couldn't get out, and that's what led to both Eddie and Ketia chances because we just crowded them out. And I'll get to what you were saying in a second, but that's the main thing that stood out to me was that we were able to really isolate their build and really make sure that they didn't have any time because we went man to man and then Partey stepped up in the right back role and we just shut it down and turned the ball over, and that's how we got the ball back and got on with things. And if you look at the Eddie Nketiah chance that hits the post, that's how that chance evolves. It's because we force the turnover, and Eddie makes that run, and he gets in behind. So that's for me. And in terms of the what you were talking about in terms of his specific inverted right back role. Look, I've said it in the past. I don't like it. I understand why we're doing it, and I understand what the technical and tactical role of it is. But it's just one of those things where it's like, just put him in the middle, man. Just put it. Just invest in it. Just go invest in going 3-4-3 if that we're doing that. Do a 3-4-3. Have him go in transition and in block situations. Go into that right back role. But in possession, I don't want to see him out wide. I want to see him central and controlling our build, which we did see more in the second half. But there were times where I felt like he was a bit too wide because Declan would be the third centre back and he would kind of dictate the play. I mean, I don't know what you thought of it, Chris, but that was what I saw yesterday.
Well, yeah, I think at times they were a pivot. Him and Rice, it was not the consistent shape we operated in. I think at times he was even the right centre mid, and Erdegaard would be touchdown right wing. Saka didn't really have the chance to be inside as much as we hoped he would, which led to
none of the wingers did.
Yeah, which led to him, neither of them really having shots. Like the shots came from like Erdegaard, pop shots from edge of the box, Partey shot from the edge of the box. So again, yeah, the offensive fluidity wasn't really there. But I think Partey's role was, I think he did well at some points. I think on the ball early he was overly aggressive. Saka was actually very angry at him because he was like punching these passes into Saka to try to put in 1v1, but they were so high. Like it would be the height where you would try to volley a ball, and he's passing to Saka that high. I think as he moved over to the right, I was pretty comfortable with him in the right, not defensively. I didn't really like when they caught him 1v1 on the right because I think he just doesn't really defend.
He sets up his body wrong, I find.
I think he sets it up like to know someone's behind him, but when he's on at the right back, no one's behind him. Like he doesn't have the security of a. Well, Ben White's there, but he's too far to meet as soon as the guy gets past him. So it's a lot more dangerous for Partey to defend the way he does, and it's just what he does. He's not going to change it at 30 years old. He's not going to change the shape where when he plants his feet, it's a similar thing to Bissouma. He just plants his feet.
I knew you were going to bring
he
it.
plants his feet right in front of you and makes you make a decision. So if you go around him, it's really killing us. Luckily for us, it was Jeffrey Schlupp and
I mean, he really turned on the last 20 minutes though. Like in the last 20 minutes,
he even did it in the box, and luckily for him, he got his foot out of the way. Like when Eze went past Declan Rice, and Partey planted his feet, he almost gave away a pen. Like he just about got his foot away. But I think that's very dangerous the way in which he defends. But that's what you get for putting a centre mid at right back. Like you're putting him in the last line of the defense before the keeper, obviously, but the last line of the defense, the security is gone. So how aggressive he is more dangerous, and that's just what.
I guess what it is, to sum it up, I think the frustrating thing is that there were some good moments. I think that this was a step in the right direction, at least offensively. I think we maintained the same level of transition control of the other match, but we generated some more open play chances. The issue is balance has set us wrong because we've got people in zones that they don't really prefer. And I think that a Declan Rice man of the match performance made us look a little bit better than the structure allowed us to be. And I think that moving forward, we need to make sure that we're balancing and getting our most dangerous men closer to the goal. That fundamentally is
But
it. I don't want to see.
how long are we going to say this? How long are we going to say that he needs to put these players closer to each other, put them in their optimal positions? Because it's been what 7 games, 8 games now of this season,
Until
including
he does it. I don't
including.
know
Yeah,
what else to tell
literally.
you. Until he does it.
But what do you think will cause him to do it? Because he's only ever done it after a loss.
It won't. Here, I'll just make a bold claim. It won't, because we have too much transition control in the back for us to concede and hurt in the way that it would force him to. Like,
What,
he only
what do we
sees.
always say? It's very simple. What do we always say? If something's working, he's not changing. It's just that simple.
It's not working.
No, but but it's not
You
costing
know what I
him.
mean? It's not costing.
I know, but I'm saying that that's why I say that defensively was so resolute now. Like the goal we conceded last week doesn't make shouldn't make anyone worry, and didn't make him worry because we were the same defensively, the same shape. I would worry personally if I was him, where your fullbacks keep getting caught 1v1. That's for me a big danger. Knowing who the fullbacks will be and knowing that you're bringing Zinchenko will play next game. We all know that for sure. Zinchenko is your left back next game. I'm 90% sure. I don't know what he'll do. Maybe Zinchenko is not fit, but Tommy's gone. Red card. So
He'll do Zinchenko Gabriel. I'm pretty sure
but
about it.
you know the danger with that. Like we saw how you catch Tomiyasu 1v1 a lot. Like it wasn't just one time. Before the red card, there was multiple times. The second yellow for the red card was 1v1, just him running around him simply because Tommy got too tight.
Look, I
So-
hope that we see the preseason Kiwior Gabriel switch that we saw. I would love to see that in the next game, especially versus Fulham. I don't think Fulham, again, we're kind of lucky that the amount of opposition that we're facing don't have a huge 1v1 threat in general. So I don't think that you're going to get caught out necessarily. United will be interesting, but again, I think by then we might have a Jesus that's back, right? So when you have a look at it, I don't think that we're going to get caught in a way that punishes us enough to force a change. That's really what happens, right? Like when you look at the Emil Smith Rowe false nine change from a Saka left back, it was because we lost the semifinal doing that way. So I don't think we have anything significant coming up. And I also don't think that with Declan Rice in the squad now with Partey, that we're ever going to be outnumbered to the point that we're going to see transitions so frequently that we're going to lose. Like, I really think that these guys.
I don't think the transitions will ever be a problem again. Like not ever, but like you know what I mean. Against unless you're facing like a Vinicius Junior in the Champions League,
exactly.
Vinicius, Rodrigo,
even Rashford on his day, like not
Rashford alone though, because it's like why I said Vinicius because Vinicius, Rodrigo, Bellingham, like that type of danger doesn't exist everywhere. Like versus Liverpool, which is all the way in December, so we don't see that. Versus Man City, all the way in October. So the tests that are dangerous are not close enough for this to change anytime soon. Like, I think we have to get used to it. And you guys are gonna keep calling for it. Adam won't start. He hasn't started for years at any team, so he won't start. So I'm a bit more confident on that. But yeah, like when those changes are made and Zinchenko is 1v1, we'll probably be 2-3-0 up. We'll concede, and it won't affect the result at all. At all, it won't affect the result at all. So I think it takes a big. Well, what we know for the 3 years we've had him is that it will take a big loss.
Yeah, no, I just think it will be a case of if it's not like he won't change it unless it hurts him. Like he refuses to change. But before we do get into just the final thoughts and stuff, I do want to do a quick section on Declan Rice because
I think. Oh wait. Before we get into that, do you guys think it was a red?
With a Tommy? No, not at all. I mean, the first one is a team yellow on time wasting. In fact, Havertz is the one that makes the offense for longer.
100%.
And like I think he was holding it for like 8 seconds before, and then Tommy just gets it, and then he gets the yellow card because of that. And then secondly, it was again a team foul on counter fouling. Like that Tomiyasu, he barely touches. And so the yellow was more to do, I think, with actually Havertz beforehand. Havertz, unfortunately, was the one creating a lot of the issues, and then Tommy just got the yellow because he had the action right after that. Like the amount
Yeah.
of transition fouls that we were doing in general was a team impact as opposed to Tomiyasu. But yeah, like we
My
know.
annoyance with the foul was that everything after that should have been a yellow. So when IU was dragging Saka to the floor,
Yeah,
that had to be a yellow. So every foul from, like, if you give the Tomiyasu yellow, just be
Mhm.
consistent. I don't think it was a yellow. The first one shouldn't have been his yellow. Like
Yeah.
you should blow the whistle, because you didn't blow the whistle to tell him to hurry up. The crowd started getting loud, and then he just got influenced by
that's
the
the
crowd,
point.
yellow
That's
card.
the point. But that is the point, right? Both yellows. He considered it. Crowd got on his back, and he hesitated and gave it. He panicked. That
Mm.
was the point. I don't think if he was just like it was just a normal day, he's not giving any yellows. He let the crowd get to him, and he gave both yellows. And honestly, if there was a yellow for the first one, it's for Havertz. It's not for Tomiyasu,
But
because Havertz had it for 20, 20
The
seconds.
Havertz thing, even, it wasn't even just Havertz. It was before that. We were time wasting on the goal kick. Like Thomas Partey was just
Yeah,
walking with the ball, so it was just an accumulation, and then the fans getting on him. He just had to give.
that's the point.
Yeah,
That's the point. The fans were
so,
getting on him. But yeah, now we've talked
I
about that.
think Tommy's red is a blessing in disguise, though.
Agreed.
That's
We'll
what
get into that on the film preview, but um, I do want to quickly talk about Declan Rice. For the millionth time on Ball of a Passion, we are going to take full credit for Declan Rice. No one else cares. No one else has any right to. That's our boy. The rest of you can just
You
thanks
don't
us.
you don't
That's
think like Arteta has a bit of
no. It's the George V
Oh,
underscore AFC and current BOP threads that are the
right.
ones that, as well as you to doing the prop
Biggest
beforehand.
rice comp on the platform?
Exactly. This is the thing. It's all us. No one else has a say. Jokes aside, genuinely, it's just like the one main thing I'm going to say. It's a pleasure to watch him play football. It just is. Like genuinely, it's just a pleasure to watch this guy.
No,
play
I'm going to go
football.
in because I feel like you're being too nice. Let's just have it right. Everybody and their mom told me that Declan Rice couldn't be a 6, and he just dropped one of the man of the match. And I thought that, in a couple games and in 2 to 3 weeks of actual training showed everybody that he suddenly learned the 6 position. I guess it was just
But
impossible for him to
do you
learn.
remember when he signed? The day he signed, I said people will magically act like
Within
he's
10
changed.
You remember
games.
what I
Yeah, yeah.
responded to you? I said within 6 months, the entire narrative is going to
People are
switch for
saying like,
Declan
"Oh,
Rice.
he's learned." He hasn't learned. Like even he has
Anything.
said, "Oh, I see something
Yeah.
different." Yeah, but he hasn't learned a new position. Like no
Yeah.
one. Can
I think
teach
the
a new
best tweet I
position.
saw was
So,
in two games, he's learned the position of a 6. This guy is I think it was like the mentality of a monster. I don't know how he's learned this so quickly. Just
but
crazy.
he was already a 6 and a lone 6 with Suchek vacating, even though it was a pivot on paper. Suchek
Constantly.
ran away from the responsibility, so it was a 6 anyways. But yeah, I cut you off, George. So go on.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say like this whole idea that Declan Rice can't be an anchor, he's not able to be an anchor, and I worry about him being the lone pivot, what to do in possession. Hogwash. I mean, he just dropped an entire clinic for you on your head, and I feel as though that we're gonna have to get used to stopping these position arguments. I find it so frustrating, personally, because
Yes.
as much
Yes,
as
he
we're
can.
talking,
But
Of course
Palace
he
is
can.
one of the better teams in the game. Palace is worse
Like
than Fulham.
genuinely, if
Better
there
than
was a
Fulham, sorry.
team that was going to be physical with him, try and
yeah.
crowd out the central spaces, really put him under pressure and build, it was Palace. Like this is a genuine, like, not just a clinic. This is a marker. This is a marker for what he is going to be in an Arsenal shirt.
I also think it's
And
easier for him to have a good game against United.
yeah,
than
100%,
Palace.
100%. Especially
Here,
with now.
I'm just gonna say. So hold on. So it's gonna be harder for you to have a game where you're lacking space. So if it is a team that just sat back, which again I really disagree with that statement. They packed the middle and they were up for it. Wouldn't it in theory be a lot easier when a team doesn't sit off you and you have space in behind to run into? Like I don't understand this. And fundamentally, when you look at it, Declan Rice didn't just do the job of a lone anchor. find him in the pockets. Our best open play chances. Where's Declan Rice? He's up in the pockets finding pace. And he's feeding in forwards. This isn't just a lone anchor performance. This was an all action performance. And again, yeah, I completely agree here. He's not even fit fundamentally. Like he's not 100% fit. And so we've got a lot of things to see with Declan Rice. There's a lot more levels for us to see and go through. But I really push back on this idea that people were so adamant that he wasn't able to pick up the ball off our center backs and drive into space. He was given first receiver responsibilities over Thomas Partey, who everybody and their mom told me was a better fluid half turn. Like, can we stop saying that a fluid half turn means you're better at first phase buildup? It isn't true. That isn't what it is. And being press resistant and having a fluid half turn doesn't make you a better anchor. Like, this isn't what an anchor's responsibility is about. We need to start talking about how does somebody affect build-up play? How does somebody affect body orientation? How does somebody affect transition control? When you start asking those things, you start to see the picture a little bit more. And I think that his ability to adapt to different areas of the pitch show that he doesn't have this angle bias that people keep saying about cheating left. I don't know about you guys, but was he cheating left last game? He was not. He was
In fact, his biases were more towards the right. Like
Yeah.
if you look at the pass map, his biases were towards right. But quickly, because I do want to get into just like some overall arching points, but I do want to say that United suits us better for him specifically.
No problem. Lord Gunnar, I will be right here, as we always are. And not only that, it's going to be quicker than you think. And when he drops it on Spurs and he drops it on top of the United on top of that, I'm going to be here waiting to see what more was needed to be shown.
Watch for Liverpool. Like he has some kind of.
He's already done it at Anfield. So
Like,
I don't know
this
why
is the thing. He has
question
he has some kind of vendetta at Anfield. I don't know what he turns into some kind of monster. I remember that the Palace, the West. Do you remember, Chris, after we watched the Palace game, and there was the Liverpool game on in that pub?
West Ham versus Liverpool when they won.
West Ham versus Liverpool, they won 3-1. He was everywhere.
Yeah.
Like
I think people just I think United obviously is just the big name, the big game, the biggest.
But just in terms of the actual personnel on the pitch, they're going to be.
But when you break it down, United's press is better for a 6 to operate against.
Of course. Look at the spaces that they've had against Wolves. Are you saying that it somehow is better to do what somebody did against Wolves versus what he did against Palace? Like, for me, the job is much harder against Palace than it was for Wolves against United.
It is, but even in the 2 games that have been played so far this season, the 3 midfielders that have been dribbled past the most all play for Manchester United. Casemiro, Mason Mount, and Bruno Fernandes have been dribbled past 8, 7, and 4 times.
4
8,
times,
7, and 4 times, yeah. And if you think Declan Rice going around Casemiro or Bruno will make him better than he has been so far, then I'm not sure. But I don't think he's fit either. I think again the defense we've had suited like his fitness levels. I think a lot of players we have aren't really 100% fit. But because of the way we've packed the midfield and packed the defense with like runners, I think defensively, like we rest a lot more than we did probably last season. Like last season we were chasing transitions and we were like, oh my God, Gabriel's dominating the ball and behind, but we haven't seen that too much yet. Or Mountain's injured, so it's probably Ericsson or McTominay, whoever it is, even easier.
If I could do the visual.
If you could do the visual. But yeah, I think Declan Rice for me, like with 80-90% fitness, is the best player on the pitch yesterday and will continue to be our best player, our leader. I think, again, his importance and his level, just how important he is, like how he shouts at everyone and was moving Tomiyasu this early. He is
crazy.
The captain. He is the captain. He is a captain. And again, like the build-up thing always baffled me because we saw him in the World Cup dictate a build-up alone and get a team to the quarterfinals and then get killed by Tchouaméni midfield. So yeah, he's the best out in the world. Actually, I was gonna stop and say he's the best in the league. He is the best in the world, and he has been for a while. Not just because he's at Arsenal and people want to pretend he's Arteta's a magician because of Rice performing against Crystal Palace. But yeah, you were saying final thoughts, Khan.
Yeah, no, I wanted to get into everyone's final thoughts on this game. Um, no, before I hand it off to Chris and hand it off to George, first of all, thank you for all the support recently. It's nice to be back and back with a new season, and hopefully this window will end soon. So it will be fun times just to get back to the football. I do want to say that this game embodied everything I wanted from Arteta this season. Bit more rotation, a bit more steel, and especially under adversity. And there are things to work on, but I don't know about you two, but I enjoyed that last 15 minutes. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed just getting stuck in and having your heart out to your chest, just getting into that sort of low block, completely it's us versus everyone kind of mentality. It was just very, very enjoyable. So um I want to say thank you to both the guys here, everyone in the comments. Please do like and subscribe. But yeah, I'll give a hand over to Chris for final thoughts, and then George can sign us out.
Yeah, for me, it was great to see that again. Haven't really seen it, like the low block 5-3-1, since Liverpool 21-22, because we didn't get a red card last season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we didn't get a red card, so we didn't see a 5-3-1. So yeah, when we 0-0'd Liverpool, that was 74 minutes. So it was little less time of stress. Good for me, I think. Tomiasi's red, despite not wanting the red and it being bad refereeing, is a blessing in disguise. I don't really like seeing him left back. But yeah, I think Rice is the best in the world. Party is adapting to the role, but there's some negatives with him. Saliba was world class again. The last ditch tackle was something that I don't really like seeing, actually. Like, I'm happy we rarely see Saliba make that slide. It just shows he keeps everything right in front of him. But having to do that when you need to do it is perfect. I'm seeing people call for Raya to start, even though Ramsdale had a good game. I'm not sure what these players need to do before people just accept that they are very good. And yeah, nice 1-0. No one got it right. Good, actually. No, you guys were close to that 2-0. When Eddie missed, Eddie had 2 chances.
Livid. Livid.
Martinelli. So like, I was comfortable with the 1-0.
At least I'm still top. That's the only thing that matters, really.
There's 3 games in, mate. 3 games in, there's probably going to be at least 40, 50 more. So
no, you know what I'm more pissed at is the idea that I did the change in prediction based on Gabriel being in, and that's what I think annoys me more, because you could just tell it was this type of game. But in general, I think it was a tough win.
Wait. Without a red card, do you think it still ends 1?
No.
You think we get 2 and
no? We get 2 with 11v11 on the pitch.
We get 2.
We get 2. We do get 2.
I think we get
not 3. We get 2.
No, I think we get 2, because we don't kill people like that, and we won't kill people like that until we get balance. But look, the big thing for me is at the end of the game, it's a tough win. I do like this idea, not just the block, but I like us in cup competitions being able to survive in general. Like, I think it's a beautiful thing that we can do, and I think it bodes well for the future when we face teams that are of equal stature to us. I know that we had to whip it out at an inferior team, but in general, it's nice that the boys are willing to fight like this, and still with the signings fight. Like, the mentality was excellent. One thing that I wanted to point out, not just the block, but guys, look at the passing accuracy of every single sub that came on the pitch. Nobody lost a pass. Everybody was at 100% passing accuracy. So that, for me, kind of shows the retention more than a player does, like a Zinchenko or something. Everybody, to a man, that came onto the pitch there looked after the ball. Jorginho was excellent too when he came on. He made the right decisions. Kiwior, he did his job well. He came in and slotted into a back line that, defended the box brilliantly. And so while it was maybe nerve-wracking for some, I think in general it bodes a lot better that, the team is more able to slow things down when we need to. So in general, tough game, annoying at points, but we went out there with, 6 points now on the board. And again, as Chris said, only 3 teams to do that in the league. So we're doing something right, and we're still got levels to go to. So I hope that we improve the balance into our next game. And I think that we'll see just better performances as we build up, the more that we commit to balance and getting our most dangerous players closer to goal. So, guys, thank you so much for sticking with us. We really appreciate all of the engagement. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. You hit the bell for notifications to know when, in fact, we do upload. And you can find all the boys' socials down below at GeorgeV_AFC or Chris at CKFTPL, Curran at Curran BOP, and of course, Ball Over Passion on YouTube or at BOP Footy on the Twitter. So, guys, thank you so much, and we will catch you guys on the next one for a Fulham preview. Peace.
Peace.